Hey everyone, Sycra in here, and today I'm doing a traditional speed sketching video where I start with some basic weird abstract shapes, and then I'm gonna do my best to turn these into faces. So first thing I wanted to talk about is actually my last video, which was super long. It was 3 hours and 5 minutes long, and I was expecting actually a lot of people would be pissed off that it was so long, but surprisingly, I got a lot of good comments and people seemed to enjoy it. So I'm really glad to see that. And in the video, I mentioned that I was considering Patreon as a method of maybe earning some more money, because you don't really get much from YouTube, and I wasn't doing that well, or I'm not doing that well with freelance and stuff right now. And I got some comments encouraging me in that direction. Specifically, there was one comment that was very, very encouraging and nice. So what I decided to do is go ahead and make a Patreon, but I didn't want to just make tutorials on the Patreon, because I want to keep the tutorials on the YouTube. I want to do it so it's like, basically, if all you watch are my YouTube videos, it stays exactly the same. But if you subscribe to a Patreon, you get something like extra. So I thought, well, what could I put that is extra? And then I thought, well, if I make YouTube about tutorials, then I could make Patreon about my art, like just me. And because maybe, that would make it so if you don't like my art, but I can teach you something, fine. You can just watch the YouTube videos and that should be fine. But if you actually want to support me or you like my art, then it would make sense to do the Patreon. So I figured, okay, so maybe I could do pointy chins on Patreon. So that's what I'm going to do. And I've already recorded a brand new episode of Pointy Chins, and that's going to be on my Patreon. And the link's going to be in the description if you're interested. And then I thought it would also be good to just put works, like the drawings and stuff. Like I kept it really, or I tried to keep it really affordable with like if you pledge $1, then you get to see all my images and like high res and stuff. And that's from all the sketchbooks. And then if you pledge more, like $5, you can see the new episodes of Pointy Chins and also have all those images. And then I made some more things. But yeah, so that's really thanks to your support, and I really do appreciate it a lot. And I was thinking about this because like doing this art that I'm doing now, as many of you know who know me, I kind of put my work down a lot because I don't think I'm really that good, and I'm constantly trying to get better. And I feel like that's what makes me maybe a little bit better at teaching, is just that I don't feel like I'm a teacher as much as I feel like I'm just another student who figured something out, and then it's like, oh, cool, I figured this out. Here, I want to share it with you. But anyway, I had this epiphany, and it's kind of like, it's not that intelligent in terms of the subject or the content, but it was this, like, art is for people. And that was it. Like, art is for people. Because I was thinking about my art, and then I thought, well, but I just draw like stuff. Like I do my pointy thing, or I do faces like this. And I thought, well, who would be interested in that? And then I thought about myself and my young self. And it's like, I think when I was young, I would be interested in it. And then somehow that led me think like, oh yeah, art is more like, it's just a communication tool, but it's also something that can be appreciated. And instead I had learned this thing, and maybe you are thinking this way too, or maybe you used to think this way, or maybe you never did. I hope you never did, because it's not really a good way of thinking. And of course, you're always free to let me know in the comments any more details on what you think. But I used to think, or I got sidetracked into thinking about art as like art is something you have to get good at, and then if you're good, you can get hired, and then if you're hired, then you can survive. And it's something where it's like, I completely forgot that, no, art is so that you make something, and then if people like it, they would like the thing. So if you get hired by a company, the whole reason is because that company thinks you can make them money, because people will like your work, and so people will pay to see your work, and it's owned by the company. Like, the company is using you in a way to make something that other people want. Like even magic cards and stuff, which I'm not opposed to this. It's like, this is a thing. You make work that is good, and the company knows that people will like your work and it will sell. And so it's like, oh, they are the middleman between your work and the consumer. And it's like, no, you don't need that. You could just have your work and directly go to the consumer. And I think things like Patreon are very good for that. Of course, I mean, I was scared about it for a long time as well, just because, I don't know. There's this thing with, making money in art and being a sellout and stuff. But in the end, it's like, well, if I'm doing work that's mine and it's selling directly to people who would be interested in it for a price that's really affordable, is that worse than working really hard to do something for a company that is then selling to people and making money and whatever? So I don't know. That's that. Maybe I can talk a bit about what I'm drawing. So with this shape, because they're all just shapes, but something that was that I was really focusing on is three-dimensionality and making it so, yes, they're flat shapes, but they turn into more formy things. And I think this is something that's good to think about when you're drawing things that you like to that you like to draw. Because I think sometimes what happens is we get really wrapped up in exercises and like, oh, I have to learn form, so I'm going to draw a bunch of boxes. And it's like, sure, that works and that's good in a way, but I think it works better to imagine what you would already draw in a box and then translate that. Like, for this, I'm doing the hair, and then I'm trying to think, okay, how would this go around a box shape? And it's a bit like, it's contrived, right? Like, people don't look like this, but I guess because I do a lot of stylized stuff, I can get away with it. But that was primarily my thing. Like, okay, let me think of where is the center and what are these forms and what's jutting out and what could this be? And it's pretty challenging, but I think it's rewarding as well because you get to test yourself. And something else I wanted to address is this thing of fundamentals. And I've had a few comments from people who are talking about mastering the fundamentals, and like, oh, they asked me, should I just master the fundamentals, and which fundamental should I master first? And for me, I felt kind of like, you don't really just like master the fundamentals. It's more like, and the advice I gave one guy anyway was, think of it like a video game. Like, let's say you're starting in a video game and you have a bunch of stats like strength and agility and magic and defense and stuff. And all your points, and so these are your stats, right? So if it was in art, it would be like values, proportion, perspective, anatomy, and stuff. But all your stats are at a pretty low level, right? Like level 1. And let's say level 10 is the max for the stats. So the goal isn't to really get like strength from level 1 to level 10, or a stat of 1 to 10, and then work on magic from 1 to 10. It's more like you invest a bit in strength. So maybe get strength from level 1 to level 3 or level 2 or something. And then you work on defense a bit and get that from level 1 to level 3. And then work on magic and work on whatever. And so what you're always doing is just taking your weakest, the thing you're weakest at. So if you're the weakest at in magic or in values, let's just say, or color, you just work on that until it's stronger than the other things. And then you just keep going to whatever you're weakest in and improving that. So for me, I move around between like gesture, perspective, anatomy, proportion, and I'll go back to doing really basic fundamental stuff like stick figures, just because you never really master them. You're just always getting better and better at it. And it's something that you have to keep working at. And so I don't really agree with this whole, I'm going to master this and then move on. It's like, yeah, kind of, but you'll still end up working on it. And I think it's important to always go back to the fundamentals because they are the fundamentals. They're the foundations of everything else. Like you built everything off this. It's kind of like a house, right? If you build the house's foundation and the foundation is really strong, then when you build the walls and the roof and everything, it's gonna actually stand, and maybe it will even be, if you have a super fancy foundation, it'll be earthquake proof, and then you won't get toppled. But if you have a weak foundation, then maybe your house looks really nice. Like, oh, this has a very nice roof, which I imagine, I guess, would be like textures. Like you photo bashed and put a lot of nice textures and used a lot of nice brushes and stuff. It's like, whoa, that's such a nice roof. But your foundation is all mud, and then the house will just cave in, and where's your roof now, right? Like it's just sitting on top of a bad foundation in the mud. Anyway, so so with this guy, I thought I wanted to give him a hair like a big bald spot in the middle of his head, and I wanted to make it all stylized, so I made it very pointy and stuff, and I let it go above his head and outside, and I don't know, just nonsense. I think nonsense is very good as well in art, like experimenting with ideas that don't necessarily need to make sense, just because at the end of the day, it's important to remember, like, it's just a picture and it needs to look cool, I guess. Sure, it's like if you're a concept artist, it's an idea and you need to convey an idea for the purpose of communication. But if you're just making cool images, I think sometimes it's important to remember that this stuff is supposed to look cool, and it's not just about, making things look correct and, the lighting's perfect and everything. So anyway, that's about it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I tried to keep it shorter, and hope you liked it.